Yeah, we'll just start there and go from there.
Don't cover your ears. Come on now. But yeah, I mean, it was kind of rough having to go through a Sunday of no Chiefs football, but it was nice going into the weekend, seeing them beat the Chargers. What was a pretty good game all around. I mean, the Chargers are definitely a solid squad and will be in the playoff hunt through the season. Um, certainly some unfortunate injuries, I think, helped KC in certain aspects of the game. But I mean, overall, KC played a really solid game, sort of across the board, and did what they needed to do to pull off the dub against a pretty solid squad and what was a perennial playoff / Super Bowl favorite heading into the year. So, I know we talked going into last week that we felt that KC wasn't tested enough after playing Arizona, and I would say they certainly passed the test going against a much better defense and a much more expensive defense. In terms of the offseason moves the Chargers made with the mindset of being able to secure these close games against KC, and I will not deny that injuries played a factor. Certainly hard to do anything when you lose three of your linemen, especially your center. I think I was even telling the Bolt Bros guys during the game, I'm like, that's probably the worst one to lose because that's so many calls and protections and things you got to do as a center that you can't. I mean, while the backup certainly paid money and should prepare to do what the starter does, I mean, you can't necessarily anticipate them, to be the same flow and pace on the line. So, either way, KC, played a really solid game. Defense showed up. It turned out to be more of a defensive battle than I thought it would be. But some of the younger players stepped up when they needed to, made some very crucial plays. Jalen Watson with the pick six. The guy was flipping burgers at Wendy's like 2 years ago, and he's the AFC Defensive Player of the Week, and literally.
Well, that's how he got the tryout, right? He probably did a good burger for Andy, and that's when he got in.
That's a fair assumption to make, but completely inaccurate. But I appreciate the effort and adding more to the backstory. Anyways, some of the youth players, and that was sort of the theme going into the offseason, was to inject youth and speed into the defense, and you're kind of seeing some of those guys show up in pretty crucial moments. But overall, real solid game out of KC, and excited to get the Colts next week and then get into a pretty rough stretch of games. But things are looking good so far.
Yeah, I need to jump. Hefe, I know that you are a troll amongst trolls. You're actually pretty mellow, but always know what you're talking about before you say stuff like that. Coach had a devastating loss to his father, so now don't you feel like an asshole? Okay.
You're only doing it because his name's Hefe KC. If it was Hefe Raider, you wouldn't have said anything.
No, there is a Hefe Raider, and I would have said something because, like I said, if you're going to say something that's stupid without knowing what's going on, let yourself open to be sharked.
What are you talking about? I mean, if they don't catch him, then it's not an interception. So I don't know what you want me to. I don't know what you want me to provide further context to. Asante Samuel dropped one in the end zone. Should have caught it. NFL corner should catch that. Not my fault he didn't. But is what it is.
Hey, look who came back. If you remember last week, if I am not mistaken, or Captain, it may have been on your show even. Actually, I think it was on your show when I stepped in maybe 3-4 days ago. Kelly was on there, and I told her to step on over to the Wild Wild West. Kelly, happy birthday.
Kelly.
Happy birthday. Thank you very much for jumping over. And I bet you didn't know. I bet you thought I might have forgotten, but I didn't.
No, did not. We got to say happy birthday to Raiderette. Kelly Farley because she wants to make sure that that is what we all know her as the wonderful Raiderette that she is. And thank you, Kelly. Happy birthday, darling. Always been a positive force amongst my shows. And like I said, she has got a heart of gold, and I'm glad that you're here, Kelly, to see us.
So, with regards to challenges in that game for the Chiefs, I mean, obviously you won, and that's great. But I mean, injuries, I think we can all agree, were certainly very much in your favor when you have those guys down. What were some challenges that you weren't expecting, or maybe you were expecting but just didn't think they would be as great as they were?
Honestly, that the game pretty much played like I thought it would. I mean, we knew Bosa and Mac were going to be, pretty tough to defend against and scheme against. And I thought overall KC did pretty well in keeping Mahomes upright and keeping the pocket clean. I mean, obviously some stuff was designed for him to get out a little bit, and he definitely, had a little Mahomes magic on one touchdown in the red zone, but that's just what he does. But I thought overall, they did pretty well against that pass rush duo that obviously gave the Raiders some fits the first week, and I fully anticipated to come in and see at least 3 to 4 sacks, and I think there was one. And so, I mean, it was pretty clean game, but, Casey's offense, especially the offensive line, I thought matched up pretty well with the defensive front of the Chargers, especially comparing it to the other units in the division. I thought they did pretty well moving the ball through the air. I thought that would probably be the biggest issue. But, I mean, even have Watson, the sort of undrafted free agent that came by the way of the Bucks, catches a tutty on J.C. Jackson. I mean, it's a little poetic justice there. So, it wasn't the prettiest of games in terms of offense and what we saw from week one and just lighting up the scoreboard, but that was to be anticipated playing against a much better defense. So really there wasn't any part of it that surprised me. And then, kind of in typical Chargers fashion, I feel like towards the play calling got really less aggressive from their point of view, which helped, but that's kind of how the Chargers games always go. I feel like they someone have their foot on the throttle and then just like ease off, and then something happens and the game's, turned back, and it always comes down to the last possession. But honestly, I thought it played the way I thought it would, maybe with one more touchdown here and there. But I mean, the teams match up pretty well, in my opinion.
Yeah, they do. They really
maybe
do.
Not so much on paper when you just look at the two rosters, but watching that game, I thought both sides of the ball matched up pretty well in terms of how they approach their offensive attack versus the Chiefs defense and vice versa. But always good to come out with a win, and especially when there's no big surprises or shock coming from the game in terms of some exposure to a weakness or anything like that.
Avatar, I kind of covered that at the beginning of the show. I would just say go quickly watch the first 5 or 6 minutes after the intro there. You'll get all the lowdown on what's going on with Coach. I do want to
not necessarily true, Big Bronco.
I did want to pull up Biggie Bronco's comment there. It was kind of fitting. It was very much fitting in terms of what you were saying. That's Rashawn Slater. He is.
You're talking about Zion, the rookie.
The guy. The right. Yeah, the guy on the right, but he got hurt, right? So
he might have gotten hurt. I don't know if he did.
No, the Chargers' right tackle got hurt, and then their center got hurt, but their left tackle, Rashawn Slater, was fine. So he's not who Rashawn Slater was a rookie last year. This is his second season.
He's talking about Zion.
Okay, so Zion got hurt.
Yeah, but I mean, for the first part of the game, he was.
Oh, he was amazing.
I mean, he was definitely holding his own. There were some holds in some of the highlights that they didn't call, but that's football. But I wouldn't say that they waited till the other side was hurt and moved.
Oh, sorry, Pipkins got hurt. He's right. Sorry, it was Pipkins got hurt.
Yeah. And Zion might be a guard. I don't.
I think Zion's a guard. Pipkins is the rookie right tackle. He got hurt.
Yeah, I mean, either way, he played very impressive game against Chris Jones, and it definitely helped that components of the line got injured. I mean, I texted the Bolt Bros right when Lindsey went down. I said, if I were the Chiefs, I'd put Chris Jones over the backup and tell him he's not leaving that spot. And they eventually saw him move him inside, and they were getting a lot more pressure. But Chris Jones is still a very respectable defensive tackle and pass rusher, which is why the Chargers made a move like to get someone like that. But he did. The further bolsters the thing I was saying about how they matched up pretty well, and you can tell that the offseason moves made kind of really on both sides were, at least to me, seemed indicative that they were making these moves with these games in mind. But yeah.
So, Captain, I'm gonna throw over to you and the Raiders, and we'll finish this off with the Broncos game, which was kind of the win that was a loss, if you will. But we'll throw over to the Raiders and kind of talk about how that game went and started and finished, and kind of your thoughts overall.
Okay, and again, unlike people that can't give out the analytical bad news, I do. I have no issues with it. Yeah, the Raiders are 0-2, and just like people have been, what is it? We are who we thought we are, and you are what your record says you are. The Raiders are 0-2 because of the two games that the Raiders played. I would say that the Raiders have played about one game. And the reason why I say that is because they didn't show up against the Chargers in the first game in LA in the first half. They showed up in the second half, and they played a game that they didn't quite have it at the end, which they could have won, but they didn't. And then in the last game in Vegas, which again, and I've seen both of these games up close and personal. I will see the game up in Nashville up close and personal, and the Broncos game and the Kansas City game. Again, I go to these games, folks. It's not like I don't. Okay, so for all of you that think that I'm not going, woe is me. No, I'm going to 13 of the 17. I've already did 2 preseason games, so I support the team thick and thin. The Raiders played well the first half. They were up 20-0. Okay, somebody forgot to tell them that there was a second half. Because at that game, yeah, and Biggie Bronco, we'll talk about that as you did. They got a good kid from the Patriots that they can groom, because obviously there's still some issues with the tackle position, but they know who they had got because obviously the coaching staff, Brasili, as well as McDaniel, as well as Ziegler, know who the kid is, and he still has about at least 2 years on his contract. So there you go. And they only did a swap of for those that don't know, they got a tackle, swapping a 6th for a 7th rounder for next year, which is not a bad trade. Okay, for somebody that they have aspirations for, and he's developmental. Anyway, back to the game. It's horrible to watch while it goes in front of you. The Raiders coaching staff, as well as their offense, as well as their defense, just sucked. Okay, Hefe, bite my ass. Okay, really, bite my ass. You didn't even look at the contract. It's a 1-year contract, and we can get out of it if we don't want to. But obviously, your ignorance shows through.
Yeah,
Anyway.
it is. It's written basically this year as a 1-year deal, and it's up almost exclusively to the Raiders front office to decide whether or not they retain him or not. And when they do let him go, it's negligible in terms of the amount of money that they end up eating as a team. And so it was actually a very well-written contract, basically saying, we'll see if you can do well under our scheme. And if not, odds are you ain't here.
Yeah. But again, the game planning sucked. Just like in the first game, they got out of their running game. And even and I will even say this, at the game winning play for the Cardinals was a play that was supposed to be a running play. Carr audibled out of it, and it was a great pass to Renfro, and in the process of going down, got whooped. Ball was popped out, and it was unfortunate. It's a pick six the other way. I still say, and again, I'm going over. I'm gonna pick on the officiating a little bit. The 2-point conversion at the end of the game was a drop that was not seen. E.J. Jones in the end zone dropped the ball. Shouldn't have allowed the 2 points. The game tying touchdown prior to that, where they called, or I'm sorry, prior to that winning touchdown, when the Raiders stopped them on 4th down with about 35 seconds to go, they had a pass interference in the end zone, which was, I'm saying this analytically. I'm not crying in my beer. It was no pass interference. The guy was not even holding him. He was guiding him, going with him. They had a flag on him. And even Ref Guru and other people have said it wasn't a penalty. I wouldn't have called it a penalty. That gave him a fresh set of downs, which allowed that tying touchdown to occur. So you take that out of the play. You take Max Crosby, who should have sacked him anyway, but it would have been negated by the friggin' non-holding call. So there was a lot of crap penalties that were not our way. And then the 2-pointer was dropped. They said it was good. And I said, Carr audibles out of a running play, out of a blitz that Budda Baker would have had. I still, and it was a good play up until the fact that he fumbled. So again, Raiders are 0-2, could be 2-0, could be at best 1-1. Okay, well, yeah, that's been.
What about the 2 catches by Devontae?
I'm sorry, what?
So what about the 2 catches by Devontae? What was going on?
Well, again, the Raiders actually made sure that they didn't clue in on Devontae the entire time. Devontae should have had another catch that was dropped because the ball was behind him, and I blamed Carr on that. So, and then I was told, and rightly so, that in the coverage that Devontae was running, he ran a crossing pattern against zone, and he should have sat in the zone. So Carr was throwing to where he should have been, and Devontae ran through it. If he gets that catch, sits in the zone, and then runs, that probably would have been a touchdown. So again, the way that the field was at that time, a catch and run was either a touchdown or a goal-to-goal situation. And again, woulda, coulda, shoulda. We're 0-2. There's 15 games left, and the Raiders will make noise. Now, I've said this from the beginning. You need to, at worst, split with all your partners in the AFC West. You win the games you can. There are going to be games that get away from you, but there's 15 games left. I'm not throwing in the towel. And there are people that are throwing in the towel. I'm not Chicken Little, and I'm not some dude that's high on mushrooms and
purple magic, purple
microdots. I'm not. Okay, but I'm saying it's like, and there are people that are calling for McDaniels' head, and then of course Sharif wants Carr. That's fine, but I want to see what the season progresses. Okay, Al Davis had the bad habit of shit canning coaches after 2 years, sometimes after 1 year. Okay, for all those that are thinking that we're gonna get rid of a coach after 1 year, you are the guys that are smoking something. Okay, I'm looking at this analytically. I'm still pissed off. The Raiders still have a good shot to make some noise. They lost their first 2 games, but it's not how you start, it's how you finish. So we will see how it goes.
So I hate to be the bearer of some bad news from the pure statistic side of things, and this is what.
Yeah, that if you start 0-2, their chances of making the playoffs is like dismally poor.
No, it's virtually nil. Based on the last 3 to 5 years. So it just normally doesn't happen.
Yeah,
now, that doesn't mean
normally
it can't.
doesn't.
That doesn't mean it can't. That doesn't mean it won't. But typically speaking, given the last 3 to 5 years, I don't think there's been a single team that started 0-2 that's actually made the playoffs.
Yeah.
In the last 3 to 5 years. Now, prior to that, there was plenty. But statistically speaking, I think Sharif said 11%. That sounds about right to me. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, I think the last team to start 0-2 and do anything was the Giants when they won the Super Bowl. If I'm not mistaken, I think
So
they
you're
went
telling me
0-2.
there's a chance.
So, yeah, I mean,
You know,
there's a way outside chance, but like,
you know, and again, I'm not trying to piss in your Wheaties, Alex, but you know what? You're 2-0, and you know you're one injury away of losing everything out. You know, you don't know how the season's going to go. Okay,
Well, yeah, I
all
know
you
that.
got,
But I'm
all
talking
the
about
people
right
that
now.
are higher than shit, and they're chirping, and I'm looking at it analytically. Okay, there's 15 games to go.
Well, I
There's a
mean, if
lot
you're
of things
using
that can go
analytics,
on.
then you wouldn't be making a case because you got an 11% chance.
Okay.
Shouldn't
I'm
do
not
it.
saying that the Raiders are making the playoffs, but I'm saying for everybody that says we won't make the playoffs, you're was it not 89% wrong?
yeah. So you're, yeah. There's certainly there's not a zero chance, but it is certainly limited. I do think that the Raiders and Broncos have found themselves in a bit of a similar situation as it comes to what we did in the preseason. And I think that's fair. So if we want to look ahead at what the Chiefs did, the Chiefs.
And by the way, I never said anything about the playoffs. I said making noise.
Well, either way, I
Making
think it's
noise.
one and the same, because at the end of the day, in order to even have a chance at the playoffs, you have to win games. And in order to make noise, really, in order to truly make noise, you also have to win games.
Yeah.
And so my comments still hold true. I think that what we saw in the preseason, so just taking our three teams and kind of putting them under a bit of a microscope, the Broncos and the Raiders did not play any of their players in preseason. Now, no, I'm not saying that you should have played your starters for 30 snaps across 3 games or something crazy like that. I think that's equally as stupid. But I do think that when you are in a position where you are trying to learn a new offense and you're trying to dovetail in players or see where they fit in that new scheme, I think it is not a bad idea to have them play in preseason. Now, DZ, you did make a comment there, and I'll just quickly bring it up. You're correct. The Chargers didn't either. But my comments are predicated solely on the fact that the three of us, in terms of our teams, were actually either working in a new head coach, that's Jack and I with our two teams, or in Alex's case, they were changing their offensive identity slightly. Not a huge way, but certainly slightly, where they have gone away from, throw the ball around the field every single play to a far more balanced offensive attack. And we are seeing that play out on the field in these past 2 games because their run game looks legit. And so when you're trying to work in a new scheme and work in a new coach and kind of see who fits when, where, and how, I think it's important that you play starters versus starters. And one of the times where you can start testing communication, relaying that kind of stuff between head coach and quarterback. I think McDaniels and your offensive coordinator are in a similar position where, you got to make sure you get those plays to the quarterback and adjust accordingly quickly. Hackett has obviously had some similar issues here in Denver. And I think some of that comes from not playing in the preseason. And no, I'm not saying that they should have played like 50 or 60 snaps. I'm simply saying, maybe a series across 2 games or
I think
one series.
I think Mahomes played 6 series, maybe.
Yeah, and I think that's too much. I think that's too much. Like I actually cringed when I saw Mahomes out there for like the 2nd or 3rd series. I was like, okay, let's tone it down there, Andy, because that's a risk that you don't want to take. Like there's a point of doing the right thing, and then there's a point of kind of being silly. And I think Andy Reid kind of really walked that fine line, and he was fortunate where he didn't have injuries.
Yeah,
but
he was lucky that nobody of significance got hurt, and that's good luck. That's good luck. And I got to say, Hefe, I don't smoke weed. I've never had any illicit drugs in my life. So, dude, know what the hell you're talking about when you say stuff like that, okay? Know what you're talking about.
See, if you keep responding to that, you're just gonna welcome.
You're just pouring lighter food on the fire.
I'm just letting him know. I've been in the military. I'm a military brat. I've never smoked dope in my life. I've never had any illicit drugs. Yeah, pass the weed, dude. I know I look like Jerry Garcia because that's what they said on the picture from the game in San Diego. That dude's seen Jerry Garcia at least 40 times, No, never had it. Never had it.
That's funny. So that's kind of my take, and I'm going to quickly delve into the Broncos game before we start getting into the week 3 and the look ahead for all of our teams. So the Broncos game was a little, we'll just say not what we expected. We saw a little bit more of the same, actually, if we're going to be honest, with regards to. Oh, good for you, Edward. But I actually think we saw a little bit of what we saw in Seattle, except we saw the negative elements of it. There's a few comments earlier, a little further up, that basically said that, the Broncos offense was awful and bad. No, actually, it was certainly not without hiccups and challenges. But if you actually look at the stats and the results on the field, you will note that the offense was not awful. The challenge that we had was that once we got to the 20, we again had red zone struggles, which is a different type of offense and a different way of playing offense. So I don't think it's a fair thing to say that the offense had struggles and all that.
It was also the penalties. Okay.
Oh, geez, don't even get to start on that crap. So
it's the penalties. Okay.
Okay.
Them drugs are bad. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. So when you look at what the Broncos did, we had just far too many penalties, and we certainly had some communication challenges. I still, even after Nathaniel Hackett's presser yesterday, I still maintain that I believe that the issue is a mix between he and Wilson, even though Hackett literally went in the presser yesterday and just like dove onto the sword. I just personally believe that that's a head coach being a good leader. He didn't get up there and say the new quarterback and I aren't on the same page. He got up and said, I need to call the plays faster. I need to do this. I need to do that. That's just a head coach being a head coach and being a good leader on a team. In my opinion, I still think that this is a bit of a mix between he and Russell Wilson and perhaps a bit of ego, butting heads, that sort of thing. That's just my personal opinion.
Is there any locker room issues with Wilson?
No, I don't believe there is. And I think that he is proving to be a pro's pro, and he's certainly saying all the right things properly.
Well, yeah.
But
just a corny dude.
But I actually think what the issue with Russell is that he came here wanting control, and I think Hackett has a certain vision, and they're trying to mesh those. And that's where preseason and other things could have kind of worked some of this out, where they wouldn't be seeing what they're seeing now in the field. Again, that's just my opinion. And the Broncos have started to have quite a number of injuries stack up against them. Not to say that you shouldn't expect your depth to play and be able to play, but we certainly are. We're into our depth already, and you're only 2 games into the season, and that's not a good look for any team. But promising stuff is we're seeing a bunch of yards get put up by our offense. We're seeing us move the ball between the 20s, and we're also seeing our defense hold opposing teams despite not getting a ton of pressure consistently. We are getting pressure, but we're holding opposing teams to low scores, which is really helping us look a lot better. And if we can keep that up, I think we can do pretty well this season.
Yeah, but you've also played 2 pretty lowly ranked offenses. I mean, in Seattle and Texans are certainly not the top tier offense like you would see with the Chargers or Chiefs or Bills.
Yep.
I don't know, man. I think there's a lot to be concerned about, but we'll see.
I think there is. The question then is, let's put it this way: in the Seattle game, there was no fewer than 3 touchdowns that should have been that weren't.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's fair. Like, just all you have to do is watch the game, right? And so I think there's enough to be said there to say, all right, so add 21 points to that score. That you're up to 40 some odd points in the game. We're having a different discussion if that was the case.
Yeah, but they didn't do that.
They fumbled, but that's my point. They didn't play their starters, and they're still kind of getting their sea legs under them. And yes, that was a Navy reference, Captain. So I thought you'd appreciate that. So with that in mind, we're going to go ahead and move on.
I loved it.
Oh, I figured you would. So with that in mind, we're going to bring in Andrew from the Bolt Bros, and we're going to start jumping right into our week 3 matchups with all of us, and start bringing up our experts from our opponents in the 3-point stance segment. All of us here on the Wild West podcast. Let's welcome Andrew from Bolt Bros.
Hey guys, good to be here. How we doing?
Shipmate. How you doing, Shipmate? Good to see you, man.
Good. Good to see you guys.
How
Glad
did
to
the
be
weekend
here.
go for you?
Oh, you know,
Make it through all right?
Good. I mean, maybe, we did all right. We did all right. Thanks for asking.
I just had to check in on you.
I didn't drink a bottle of bleach, if that's what you're asking. I know we talked quite a bit about that, right? But hey, we'll get you on the next one. That's all.
I got some right here if you need to drown sorrows, man.
Grand Marnier, huh?
I keep the good stuff. If I'm going to drink, and we've already had the discussion about drugs, if I'm going to drink, I'm going to drink good stuff, okay?
You're going to make it happen. I love it.
Fantastic. So perhaps we can kick right off with your matchup. This is going to be a little bit of a we'll call it a warm up for you, Andrew. As I understand it, immediately after you being here, you're going to jump right into the Bolt Bros podcast and discuss the Jags game with another member of the Jags YouTube media as well. We've gone ahead and done you a bit of a favor. This is your warm up for your show. So we're going to go ahead and throw. Yeah, no problem. We're going to throw this out there. This is the 3-point stance with JK3 of the Bank podcast.
Hey, what's up, everybody? This is JK3 with Down by the Bank. A Jacksonville Jaguars podcast. Want to give you my 3 takeaways really quick for what the Jags will have to do to beat the LA Chargers. Number 1, adjust to the time and forget all of the outside noise. The Jags don't historically do well going over to the West Coast, so we need to go ahead and get all that out of the way right now. I would say ignoring the noise and bringing the heat on defense. Currently, right now, the Jacksonville Jaguars are leading the NFL +5 in the turnover margin. I think that's going to be really good to kind of stop that high-powered offense that you got down there in LA, and also get some good hits on Herbert. He's playing banged up right now with some rib cartilage, so I think that's going to be your number 1 thing. Ignore the noise and bring the heat on defense. Number 2, what we got to do to beat the Chargers, get James Robinson going and keep feeding the ball. 8 or 9 months fresh off a Achilles tear, and you wouldn't even be able to tell it. I mean, it's a medical miracle what we got right now. And he scored a touchdown so far in every game this year and continues to not miss a beat. Along with feeding James Robinson, you got to get ETN rolling as well. So a good ground game and good defense, number 2, are going to be 2 of your 3 things that we're going to do to beat the Chargers. And I would say the final thing, number 3, is not getting cute. This is going to be a game where you've got to come in, you've got to execute. We're going to need Trevor Lawrence to keep the ball, turnover-free, mistake-free football. He's got to execute. He's got to hit the $70 million man, Christian Kirk, a lot. And again, don't get cute. Execute on all those plays. Bring the defense, get J-Rob and the horses rolling, and I think we've got a great, victory to, stopping and getting the LA Chargers and getting out of there with the win. So, again, this is JK3 with Down by the Bank. You can follow me on Twitter at JK3rd and follow the show at Down by the Bank on Twitter as well. Talk to you guys later.
That was nice. I like that.
That's what we call the 3-point stance here on the Wild Wild West podcast. It's how we introduce our opponents for each and every one of the folks that we have coming up to play against. So the Jags are in fact looking like that team this year.
They're looking pretty solid. One thing that you did not bring up is they're leading the league in turnovers. They're at +5 right now. And so one of the things I will say, look, Trevor Lawrence is an excellent quarterback. I think he's got a new coaching staff. I think they're going to be fine. I think Vegas has the Chargers winning by 7.5 points. Dude, I to be honest with you, I think it's going to be closer than that. I think it's going to be a close game. The Jags are looking solid. Now, I will say this. I do think the Chargers, if their defense can step up, and again, there's some concerns around, Justin Herbert, right? Where's Herbert sitting? And there's a lot of conversations. I could go through the injury list. The interesting thing about the Jags right now, they have 0 people on the injury list as far as I can tell right now, which is crazy. And I'm like, wow, lucky them. But, the Chargers, man, our crown jewels are hurt, right? Keenan Allen's hurt. Justin Herbert's hurt. Donald Parham, who a lot of people don't really know, is a really good third down target for Justin Herbert. He is hurt. Corey Linsley, our all-pro center, is hurt. Our right tackle is hurt. Thanks a lot, Chiefs, for hurting both of those guys. I appreciate that.
Hey, they did it to themselves, man. Come on.
No, they did. But, bottom line, he makes some really good points, right? It's going to be a tough battle. I will be there with my brother Kyle, and it's going to be exciting.
Yeah.
I tend to agree. I have a hard time seeing this anything but a 3-point game.
Yep.
I just do. I understand that it's basically prove it until otherwise, and the Chargers have typically proven to be better earlier in the season, and the Jags have not had spectacular records today. And so
3 or higher in the past 10 years.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
They should be good with all the first round picks.
Yeah,
but they have talent, right? But putting it together is what they've never been able to do. And Urban Meyer last year was an absolute disaster.
Dumpster fire.
Yeah. So, it'll be.
He killed it at the club.
I see it either being really close or, this is like the kind of exposure game for all the hype with Jacksonville. It's either going to be one or the other. There's not going to be an in between because they've looked good, but I wouldn't say they've played a overly good team. I'm sure going into the season, everyone thought the Colts would blow them out, but really the Colts haven't looked that good. So that's what I'm looking forward to see from a Jacksonville approach is the hype real playing, and actually a good squad.
DJ, I love your comment about Lombardi. Look, I'll be honest with you. He is very conservative. Now, you can argue a few things too, right? Our running game has been atrocious this year, which is bad, frustrating to me. But I think that's a problem with the line. And then losing Corey Linsley, losing our right tackle does not help the conversation moving forward. So that's a frustration in general anyways. Having said that, if, Brandon Staley always like to talk about the 3 phases of the game. Again, we were dead last in stopping the run last season. We're much improved. And we were almost dead last in special teams last season. We're much improved this season. So the good news is we're improving in all 3 phases of the game, and we're scoring 4 points. And also, by the way, Justin Herbert had more passing yards than Patrick Mahomes, just so you know. Alex, you know that, of course, right?
Yeah, but did he have the W?
I know. Hey, I do.
And, I recall he threw a touchdown to a Chiefs defender as well. So.
Asante Samuel should have had his pick 6 too. So frustrating.
It was the 7th round pick that worked at Wendy's, not the highly touted Florida State.
There we go. Good point. By the way, the entire time the whole Bolt Bros were actually texting Alex the entire game. The entire game just texting each other back and forth. So it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was good.
Look, I do think, again, and I said this also when we played the Chiefs, if the defense steps up, it's not going to be a contest, right? Again, our defense still can be better than they've shown so far. Offensively, we're going to score points. Now, I'll give you an update on Justin Herbert, and again, we're going to talk more about this a little later on. He's listed day-to-day, and Brandon Staley, as I always like to say, he's trending positive. He did throw some balls yesterday, and he's been practicing all day today, so he seems to be fine. But fractured rib cartilage is a tricky one, right? So I imagine he'll probably have some big inflatable donut around his ribs to make sure he's okay. But I think he's a go for the game. So.
Yeah, if you ask Tony Romo and others that have had similar injuries like that, it is a challenging one. It is about pain management, but with cartilage being broken like that or torn, I can't remember the specific. It was either broken or torn or both.
Yeah, fractured rib cartilage.
Yeah. So, that means it's cracked or broken, however one you want to look at it. You then have lost some of the structure in that rib area. And there is some risk then of, especially with a really hard hit. So a direct hit would not be a good idea for him.
Especially with some linemen out.
Well, that's exactly what you're missing some starters now, right? and that could be dangerous. And the Jags are no slouch. They have a legit. They're fielding a legit team right now.
Yep. Yeah, Doug Peterson's great. I mean, he's won a championship already with the Eagles, and so he knows what he's doing. He's a sharp head coach, right? So
he's not going to restaurants to hit on college blondes.
Wasn't that an awkward situation? By the way, one other thing I will say, I see a lot of people talk about Chase Daniel potentially playing in this game. I think if that does happen, I think there's a very remote outside chance it does happen. If it does, they will really simplify the game plan for him for this game. It'll be a lot of running, a lot of very short passes, and they'll keep things pretty simple for him.
Run right, run
Chase
left,
can do everything.
quarterback goes incomplete, punt, right?
But he's not as accurate, though. That's the concern, right? He can't throw the ball downfield, so on and so forth, right? The deep passes won't be. So,
man's made like $50 million and taken 12 career snaps.
Hey, I'll take that.
He's got to run.
I'll take it all.
Like, it just needs to be titled success. This is what I do.
Exactly. No, I love it. But anyway, so yeah. It'll be a good one. I'm excited. I'll be there for sure. And we'll be with Thunder Rally. We're doing a bunch of raffles and stuff. I'm going to get there at 8 a.m. in the morning. So any of you Bolt fans, link up with me and link up with Kyle. We're going to have a good time. So it should be a good time.
That'd be awesome. Dave, you can just call me the Warden of the North. I will accept that. There's some other names that
Winterfell.
We'll sort that out. So, no, like I said, this is actually one of the games I'm looking forward to is the Chargers Jags, because I think the Chargers are still a team that is, to be reckoned with. And I think the Jags are finally going to hit a real solid team again in the Chargers. And if they can pull it out again, then I think you have to start saying this is what the Jags are. Like, this is who they are.
Yeah, if the Chargers blow them out, which again I don't foresee, then
what happened?
What? Yeah, no, exactly.
That game.
Yeah. I think again, you got to wonder where Justin Herbert's going to be. How is that injury going to affect him moving forward? It's not even just it's accuracy. Yes, forget being uncomfortable. It's also accuracy, right? I mean, your body uses those muscles to throw the ball downfield. So I still think they're going to probably go with a really small, short game, really timing routes, very short yardage. The thing that concerns me about that, though, is the Chargers don't have a lot of guys that get a lot of yards after catch. I think Gerald Everett will probably be that guy. But for the most part, people just catch the ball and sit. And I don't particularly like that. It's going to have been one of my criticisms of the Chargers wide receiving core for a long time. We need some yak, and we don't tend to get that. So, we'll see how they play. I think, as Brandon Staley keeps saying, it's game time decision. But I do suspect he'll play. But you never know. Outside chance that Daniel starts. So we'll see.
What's the status on Keenan Allen?
So Keenan Allen is listed data. Actually, it's funny. So by the way, I've been extremely frustrated with the Chargers releasing the week 3 report. They just released it like a couple of hours ago. Today he is limited in practice. Herbert is limited in practice. J.C. Jackson did not practice. Apparently, his ankle has been hurting. Corey Linsley did not practice. Trey Pipkins was limited. Donald Parham was limited. So the two that I'm a little concerned about are J.C. Jackson and Corey Linsley. I do suspect the others will start and play. So, and I think J.C. Jackson will play as well too. He has a lot to prove. He got burned pretty hard in that KC game. He got burned 5 for 5, I believe, if the stats were correct. So $85 million man better show up this week. I mean, for real.
He gave up the touchdown to the 5th best receiver.
Yep. So
what you're saying he does not have a short-term memory.
Yeah, what's that goldfish saying on that movie with the show, the soccer show? What's it called? 3 seconds. How long did goldfish's memories last? Is 3 seconds, right? You make a mistake, that's what you're supposed to do.
Yes, I think J.C. Jackson's in more like 3 hours as a memory. So every bad play is against him is sticking with him. I mean, the best cornerbacks, including just take the best of the best in Deion Sanders, right? I mean, even he has come out and said, I mean, at that position, you literally have to be a goldfish.
Yep.
Oh,
He
yeah.
goes,
You do.
it's you have a bad play, and then that next play you need to bounce
You
right
pretty much
back and
have to
forget
do
it
that
ever
in any
happened.
position, because more likely than not, you mess up, you got to like get on the line of scrimmage and go again. So
Yeah, exactly. Well, and remember, this is a pass-heavy offense. The NFL does not give any real leeway to cornerbacks. They get burned constantly. It's just part of the position. They want to see, high flyers, right? That's why people like
Ted
Patrick
Lasso,
Mahomes.
that was it. Yeah.
Oh yeah, Ted Lasso. There we go. Gosh, I was like, what is it? Ted Lasso. I was like dying. So yeah, I mean, it's they want to see passes, and they don't really care about cornerback. Nobody cares about defense anymore, but
I do.
So
I'm Alex, I did forget in the last segment. I'm sorry. I totally had a lapse, although I thought I've really covered it very well on Twitter. But just in case anyone in our audience now with 41 or more plus on the other platforms, viewers here, just at this very moment in time, it just ticked up again. That's fantastic. Eric Saubert had a touchdown.
He did.
Yeah, I was looking for that. It's like
that's my guy.
They only have they only sell his Bears jersey.
That's my guy. He is, as I've said, a absolute legit tight end that is criminally underutilized on the Denver Broncos, and I hope to see him used more and more, because he almost stretched out and caught a touchdown in the first game. And it was off the top of his fingers. And in this game, it was just really a matter of time. And it's been our thing where I'm a huge Eric Saubert fan. I think he deserves a lot more credit than he gets at the NFL. Alex, let's just say, disagreed. I was right. He was wrong. And we'll leave it at that.
No. He gets a jersey.
Yeah, he does. He gets the Eric Saubert Bears jersey. That's all he got for sale. It's got to come from China too, so it'll be like 8 months.
Oh no!
Yeah, 8 months at least.
You can get a special made jersey on the Broncos website, and I'm sure that being the honorable man that you
are, if I had to do that, I might misspell the name.
You have a high quality Eric Saubert jersey.
I'm thinking about just tweeting at him and saying, "Hey,
in the right size for our boy that you blatantly disrespected."
I'm about to tweet at him and be like, "Hey, man."
And just for the record, I wear a 2X.
I thought you were bad. He said you were good. Will you send a jersey? Maybe we'll get it out of him. Let's see.
I wear a 2X just for the record, okay? So
yeah, I got you.
2X.
Yeah.
Saubert Chiefs jersey.
So I did realize I forgot to mention that, but I did feel that I gave it its due on Twitter already, but just because we have a nice little crowd going here, and we have Andrew. I thought it was important to just bubble that back up to the surface, just to so everyone knew. So does anyone else in the chat have any questions for Andrew on what his thoughts are versus the Jags? Because we're going to get on to the Titans Raiders game next, and that's going to be an interesting one, given the results of the last games and the fact that they had some interesting results, both of them. And frankly, I do think that's going to be a very interesting game, given the Patriots' history. And, there's quite a number of talking points to come up, from that game as well. Just give a second here in the chat if you have any questions, and we'll move right on to the Titans game, which that's another one of the games I'm looking forward to seeing.
Pretty exciting. Pretty good game. Well, Titans didn't play too great last week, so we'll see. But I will say this: Edward Allen will most likely start. He is trending positive. Again, I think the only two people that I think are a concern would be Corey Linsley, in my opinion. I think we should be pretty full this week. So we'll see. But it's really been interesting. I will say this, guys. For whatever reason, this week Brandon Staley's been very quiet about injuries, and I don't know specifically why. I don't know if he's just trying to not let the Jacksonville Jaguars know what we have going on, but he's been extremely quiet about injuries and keeps saying everyone is trending positive and listed day to day. Don't know why he keeps saying that.
Probably means they're waiting until right before the game time to decide if they're playing Justin Herbert, but they don't want anyone to know that.
Yeah, I think you're right. But I think we should be careful.
Chargers coach is taking the playbook from me. Just talk, mumble. This is Coach Bill Belichick. On to the next game.
I love that. Tom Shady, Bill Belichick. I love it. Oh man, Tom Shady. I love calling him that. It's amazing.
So with that in mind, I really want to get more of Andrew's takes on the rest of the AFC West. I think we should just jump right into the Titans-Raiders game with our second of 4 3-point stances, because we all play non-divisional opponents this week. So we got the Titans tube coming up here with the 3-point stance on the Raiders game, Captain. See what you have to say to what he has to say about you guys, and we'll go from there.
I'm rocked and loaded, baby.
What is up, Wild West podcast? Thank you guys so much for bringing me on as the representative Titans fan to give my 3 points for our Week 3 game against the Las Vegas Raiders coming to town. Titans keys to beat this Las Vegas Raiders team. First of all, I'm going to go with a 1A and 1B here, so I'm kind of cheating a little bit. I hope that's okay. This Titans team, starting with the offense, we've got to just sustain drives. We might lead the league in 3 and outs. I mean, it's sad to see. We're seeing our punter too much. God bless him. He has a cannon for a leg. But this team has got to get drives going and keep this defense off the field. Particularly, we've got to find a way to get this run game going with Derrick Henry. We've got to balance this offense with some success running the football, because this passing offense, it hasn't shown us anything in these first 2 games. And Tannehill, with these new face receivers on this team, we're not going to beat you passing the football. We've got to find balance in running with Derrick Henry. I mean, that's been our bread and butter for years now. And when that gets going, then Tannehill can find open receivers, holes in the defense, really open things up, open up this offense. So first of all, just Derrick Henry has got to get going. Finally got into the end zone last week, but 25 yards? You're not beating anyone, especially the Buffalo Bills, with 25 yards of rushing from your star running back. Defensively, we've got to get back to getting consistent pressure on the quarterback. We've got to be able to get in Carr's face. Not sure how solid the Raiders offensive line has been through the first 2 games, but we're undermanned. We came into the season undermanned with our star pass rusher breakout season last year. Harold Landry, 12.5 sacks. Boom, injury bug on his knees. The ACL gave out on him in training camp. And now Bud Dupree, our second best pass rusher, or edge rusher at least, on the edge, went out of the Bills game with, I think, a hip injury. So he might be questionable, but this defensive line has got to be able to get into the backfield. Because if not, Derek Carr is one of those quarterbacks that will pick you apart. You know, with new weapons, Devontae Adams, Darren Waller, who's been a great tight end there, and then Hunter Renfrow might be able to carve up this secondary. All right, moving on. Let me move on to point number 2 now. More of a general point is that this team, really on both sides of the ball, has got to be able to adjust and adapt mid-game. Both games so far, we have opened our drive with a touchdown, a nice long touchdown drive. We have scored 27 points total after 2 games, and 14 of those are on each of those opening drive touchdowns. So after that, it's like our offensive coordinator needs to just call the first drive and then head to the locker room, because he can't do anything after the first scripted drive. Our offense is stagnant, and 3 and outs, boom, 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 after we get some early points on the board. Moving on to point 3, I mean, any team can really say this. We got to quit beating ourselves. Last night against the Bills, we turned the ball over 4 times and had 9 penalties. And I don't know if there's a single team in the history of football that has won a game with those stats right there. So Titans are beating themselves. Other teams are beating us outright. There's just a lot of holes, a lot of flaws here. But
So on that ringing endorsement, let's everyone click those thumbs up here for these videos, for all the content that we're go ahead and bringing here on the Wild West podcast.
The music jacks you up, man.
Oh, it does. That has been appropriately curated. And Captain, over to you. Curious as to your thoughts. I did think he was quite critical of his own team, to say the least.
Got to be at this point. I mean,
what are your thoughts? And thank you very much for all the Raiders fans who are joining us here in the chat. keep those comments and questions coming. We're going to try and get them all addressed as quickly as we can.
Okay. Obviously, people can be critical of their team and still be fans. And I said, if he's critical of his team, trust me, you guys have seen that I've been critical of mine, and Ed Winchell said it best. Actually, a couple of different thoughts. He goes, if Henry shows up, the game's done. I even said it today that we got to keep Henry to about at or below 100 yards because he's going to get his yards. But you keep him at or below 100, your chances of winning are so much better because Tannehill is not the greatest quarterback. That's why they went out and drafted Malik Willis in the trade that we actually got our first draft pick this year because that was the Raiders pick. They traded to Titans, got Malik Willis for that pick, and we ended up getting Parham with the swap. But they know what the future is, and Tannehill is not the future. They got Henry. If they got the running game going, this game is going to be another L for LV. And I'm just saying that if the Raiders can't stop the run, it's going to be a long day. On the flip side of that is Denzel Perryman, who is that thumping linebacker, from what I've been told, is going to be playing this week. And we've missed him the first 2 weeks. And obviously the Pro Bowl performance for Perryman, hopefully we get him back in time. The Raiders played decently against the run. Even the Chargers they didn't excessively run on the Raiders in game one.
Right.
And aside from the midget that was playing quarterback for the Cardinals last week, we pretty much stopped.
I don't know, man. 143 rushing yards is kind of a lot.
Yeah, that's what I said.
Captain.
Without James,
you heard the words that are coming out of my mouth aside from the midget? Okay.
No, that's the running dwarf.
Yeah. I saw a thing. This is great. It was a tweet of that video, and it said, my favorite scout analysis of Kyler Murray said, it looks like he runs like a toddler that took his phone away from his parent and is running away. And they played that clip. And it's just like, I can't unsee it now.
Yeah. It's a matter of the play again. And I've seen this, and I said this, the play calling sucked. The defense got gas, and you got the running midget that runs like a toddler without the phone. I can actually see that, it's horrible, but stop Henry, get a better game plan. Do not give up on the run like the Raiders have done the first two games. Run the ball until they stop you. And, and when they start pulling up, I said this the first game and the second game, when they start pulling up, that's when you hit him with the passes. At least Carr is going through the series. He had Hollins open a lot. He had him in the first game. He played a lot in the last game. He was hitting him well. And then he forgot about him, which is unfortunate. Adams, of course, will get his catches. Waller will get his catches. Renfro, I don't know if he's going to come out to play because of the concussion that they have him in concussion protocol. That last hit where he gave up the ball looked pretty awful. But, Keelan Cole, we signed back when we lost the other kid, TJ. I can't remember. Sorry, CRS disease. But we got Keelan Cole back, who is a good route runner and can play decently. We got Tyron Johnson, who amazingly can run a 9 pattern. He might not know the playbook, and like everybody's saying, but Tyron Johnson doesn't know the playbook. He can run a 9 pattern. You don't need to know the playbook to run a 9 pattern. Okay, so we get the offense together because the defense was gassed. You can't have another gas defense this week against the Titans because, again, that's when Henry starts getting those yards after yards after yards. Play consistently, get the points. Remember that there are 2 halves to a football game. And the Raiders will be just fine. The problem will be is the Titans are 0-2 after getting their ass whooped up in Buffalo. And that is something that they don't want to show to their crowd in Tennessee. And you know what? I'd actually like to go to a game and see a win. So hopefully I get it this weekend. I'm not saying it's going to happen.
The question is, if they don't, are you going to stop going?
No. I got my tickets.
Deciding factor.
I got my tickets for the game afterward, which is the Broncos coming to Las Vegas. I got my game tickets for the corner end zone in Kansas City, the game afterwards. These tickets are bought. The plane, most of them are bought. The hotels are already on thing. I don't give up on my team. The captain will be there. Okay. The captain. And while I said, and here's a good segue. Here's a good segue because I might as well throw it out there now. Go to my Facebook site and go to my Instagram site. And if you will, I've been nominated by a couple different people for NFL Fan of the Year to represent the Raiders. And again, it's one of those things where I don't self-nominate because that's not the type of person I am. But nominate me. I would appreciate that for the ladies that did it and all the other people that have done it. I would like to get a good effort for all of the people that thought enough of me because, again, I'm not fair weather. Never have been, never will be. So there you go. Not NFL.com, Fan of the Year. You got to Google it because it's not user-friendly on NFL.com. If you go to NFL.com, you're not going to see it. You got to actually Google NFL.com, Fan of the Year 2022. My birthday is March 29th, 1965. You got to know that. I am a season ticket holder, and then the rest is on you. If you do those things right, and it's Captain Jack Levy, trust me, even a Chiefs fan could do it. It's that simple.
I'm doing it right now as we speak.
There you go. And that is physical evidence. Physical evidence that even people like Alex can do this for the old effer like me.
Yeah. I'm going to nominate myself, actually.
Well, you can do that.
I can do that. Yeah.
But again, Raiders,
and as Captain just pointed out, it should be easy enough for a Chiefs fan, but Alex couldn't figure it out.
What's that? What's that now?
But
there's a drum beat in there somewhere that was deserving.
I agree. It's going to be a good game. It's going to be a good game this weekend. Again, I appreciate everybody watching, and I will be here every week that I can be. If there's something going on, you will know about it, and I will have a valid reason why. But I'm here for the long haul, baby. I'm here for the long haul.
So, is there anything else that you think that your team might have that can trump a guy like Henry?
Trump?
Because he's really the cornerstone of their offense still.
He hasn't been looking good though this year.
Yeah, and Alex said it, and a couple of people said it. He doesn't look like the Henry from pre-injury last year. So maybe there's something that's lingering there. And not that I would ever wish ill on somebody, because that's just wrong. But if he doesn't show up to that form, I'm not going to bitch.
Although I don't know how. I mean, I think Buffalo's defense is also just that good.
It's amazing.
To a degree, because I mean, he had 13 carries for 25 yards, but I mean, against the Giants, he had 21 for 82, which is not like that good. But
Buffalo cut defensive linemen that are starting on other teams right now.
Yeah. So
yep.
Buffalo is pretty stacked.
So I think that's enough said.
Yeah.
So that's super interesting in terms of all of our matchups this week are really, really interesting. Alex, I'm going to throw this next 3-point stance over to you with the Colts.
Yeah, let's see where this goes.
Because I mean, let's be honest, the
Colts are dog water right now. There you go.
Tell us how you really feel. Here's the 3-point stance.
Oh, man, you better win.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for listening. My name is Joe Hopkins, and I am the producer and co-host of the Colts Blue Zone podcast with Fox 59 and CBS 4 in Indianapolis. I'm going to break down 3 things that the Colts need to do to beat the Chiefs. Number one, number one thing they need to do is run the ball and control the clock. This seems obvious. The Colts have Jonathan Taylor. He's their best player. But also the last thing Indianapolis wants to do is find themselves in a shootout with Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, and that Chiefs offense that can still put up a ton of points even though Tyreek Hill isn't on the field. No, by the way, Michael Pittman Jr., the top wide receiver and really the only reliable wide receiver on this roster, missed Sunday's game against the Jaguars with a quad injury that cropped up during practice last week. So he's going to be questionable for this game. If he can't go, the Colts are really going to have to be successful running the ball because they're throwing to guys like Ashton Doolin, rookie second-round pick Alec Pierce is expected to be back. In 2019, the Colts outrushed Kansas City 180-36. They dominated the time of possession, having the ball for over 37 minutes. And Marlon Mack ran for 132 yards on 29 carries. Jonathan Taylor now an upgrade, a substantial upgrade over Mack. He's going to have a big day in this one for the Colts to win. Number two thing that the Colts need to do is dominate the line of scrimmage. Taking it back to 2019, the Colts line opened up holes in the run game, and they kept Jacoby Brissett clean. He was sacked 0 times in that game. Meanwhile, the Colts on defense sacked Mahomes 4 times and held the Chiefs to 2.6 yards per carry. This season, the Colts offensive line has struggled a bit. They have a new starter at left tackle and right guard, and they gave up 5 sacks on Sunday against the Jacksonville Jaguars. They're going to have to clean that up against this Chiefs defensive front if they are going to be able to protect Ryan and give Jonathan Taylor room to run. And on defensive line, they're, people in Indianapolis are really high on across the board. DeForest Buckner, 2021 first-round pick Kwity Paye, an off-season acquisition Yannick Ngakoue. They're going to have to step up and get to the quarterback more consistently than they have over the past 2 weeks. They sacked Trevor Lawrence 0 times in Jacksonville. So the Colts are going to have to dominate the line of scrimmage and really step up in that aspect. That's emphasis number 2 on what they need to do to beat the Chiefs. And the last thing the Colts have to do is limit Kansas City's big plays. In 2019, Mahomes' longest completion was just 31 yards. On Thursday, the Chargers did a good job defending Mahomes and the Chiefs, limiting big plays aside from Mahomes' 41-yarder to Justin Watson. The Chargers defense was able to hold the Chiefs to just 20 points in that game, or at least the Chiefs offense. Obviously, they had the pick 6 to give them the lead that would give the Chiefs a win in that one. But the defense needs to keep everything in front of them, limit big plays. That should be a little easier without Tyreek Hill on the field, but the Chiefs still got guys who can get downfield. Obviously, we saw Watson do it last week. Valdez-Scantling hasn't really gotten behind the defense yet, coming over from the Packers, but he's an obvious threat. And whenever you have Patrick Mahomes, he's going to be someone who's looking to make that big play. So
jacked up again.
So, I mean, that music and those segments are great. It is awesome having one. Sure. But in terms of having that additional information to kind of go off of in terms of player specific, scheme specific, that kind of stuff. I mean, that's the type of things that as AFC West fans, we're not going to have at our disposal because we're not going to be following the other teams as closely as we are our own. So getting that type of feedback is really invaluable for us to kind of start looking at things that we might not otherwise look at in opposing teams. And I think that's exactly why the Bolt Bros are pulling in the Jags guy right after this show in terms of, that sort of thing. Captain, is NFL Nation Live going live right at 9 o'clock too?
Yes, it is. I have my response ready, but I didn't want to be ignorant and keep it for all the folks here. After this fantastic show, make sure you head over to Captain Jack's channel, Captain Jack Rackham Levy on YouTube, and hit NFL Nation Live. But after this fantastic show.
Awesome. So, Alex, obviously there's a lot to digest there in terms of players, how you think your team's going to match up. I actually think that the Chiefs have a better offensive line than the Jags do, in my opinion. And so I kind of expect a little bit of a slaughter in this game myself, which is unfortunate because I hate to see a team go 3-0, especially the Chiefs, because, well, you're the Chiefs, and it is what it is. But what do you think?
No, I think that, I mean, the Chiefs are obviously a heavy favorite going in. I think going into the season before any games were played, I would have put this as one of probably the harder games. But for whatever reason, the Colts just haven't looked the same, and I kind of think just from outsider looking in, sort of their approach of having a rental QB every year has kind of caught up to them, and they're just not, just it's not all meshing together like it has in the past. I mean, don't get me wrong, Jonathan Taylor is probably the best running back in the NFL. He's going to get his yards, and I do think that's a big component to Indy being successful against KC, or really any explosive offense. Will be running the ball and controlling the game clock. I mean, it's the first thing he talked about. But to that same tone, I think they had almost 200 rushing yards against the Texans, and we saw what happened, in that game. So I think regardless of, how much they control the clock and how much they let Jonathan Taylor eat, so to speak, I think KC's offense and just the way Andy Reid schemes and runs his offense is just too explosive in the long run for Indy to be able to hold up and stay in the game. To see it down to the wire like we saw the Chargers-Chiefs game go, I don't think this is one where it comes down to the final possession or the last 5-6 minutes of the game for it to be decided. I mean, I could be wrong, but just by how the past two games have gone from both teams, I don't foresee it being that close because I just don't think Indy's really got the same firepower they had last year. I think people are starting to figure them out a little more defensively and how to play them, and certainly probably accounting for Jonathan Taylor more than they were last year. Although, those D coordinators were smoking crack if they didn't plan for him last year.
Jokes bad, okay.
But I saw another interesting stat, and it was reading kind of prepping for the show. It talked about sort of Mahomes' history against Gus Bradley's defense, and it was like talking about how, for whatever reason, Gus Bradley is like the one D coordinator that will never come out of like his cover 3 approach. It was like, for example, last year he was like the only coach that wouldn't go the too high safety shell look that everyone was doing against KC. But it just, with the Colts defense this year through the first 2 games, they are the second to last in completion percentage given up, like 73%. And they've played Davis Mills and Trevor Lawrence. So, don't get me wrong. I think both those guys are actually some pretty solid QBs, but they're not Patrick Mahomes. They're not traditionally known for the offensive prowess, I guess, of what KC's done on offense. So I think we see sort of a similar showing to what week 1 was like, with regards to the game against the Colts. Their defensive front is pretty good, but so was the Chargers, and I thought that the Chiefs O-line held up pretty well against Mack and Bosa. And, outside of they got DeForest Buckner and Yannick, the other guy,
Ngakoue,
yeah. But like I said, that's not Joey Bosa or Khalil Mack, and I think that they're gonna have a game plan in place to contain those guys pretty well. I think the bigger deciding factor, or maybe component that could be tough, is their running game, which they've certainly, and as we've seen in the first 2 weeks, been using pretty well to manage the game. And I think that was the difference with Tyreek. You didn't have to use the run to set up a deep pass because he could just go. I think you're seeing him now without sort of that always, 100% always open deep threat. You see them using the run more to set that stuff up later. And I think that's going to be a big, where the mismatch could be, is just DeForest Buckner in the middle, maybe clogging up some of the holes and lanes they've had. Or I could just do what GA Patriot said, but I think that would be the biggest mismatch potential, is the Chiefs running game with sort of the beast they have in the middle there. But I mean, at the end of the day, I don't think the Colts secondary is all that great. I mean, Kenny Moore is definitely a very talented corner, but they don't have much else. I mean, they have Gilmore, but he's not the same Gilmore. He's not Patriots Gilmore. So I just think at the end of the day, they don't match up well, especially with how the season's gone for the Colts right now, for it to be as close of a game as I thought it would be coming into the season.
I have to agree.
I know Andrew, it pains you to do that, but
yeah,
I appreciate it.
What's Vegas got you guys winning this one by? Do they have a
hold on, Alex, before you even answer that, I think this says a lot that I think Andrew, myself, and dare I say Captain as well, have basically just assumed that Vegas has you winning without saying, does Vegas have you winning? And we'll start there.
Favorites. 6.5.
6.5. That's a bet I might want to take.
Yeah, right. I mean,
that's not a bad spread, to be honest with you.
I think they can win by far more than
that.
Well,
and I think the big component, and I kind of meant to talk about it and I didn't, but I'm sure you guys saw the news of Willie Gay, the Will linebacker, got a 4-game suspension stemming from a domestic violence incident that occurred in the summer. Kind of came out of nowhere, but I'm sure that came out of nowhere for the fans. I'm sure the Chiefs knew about it, but that's going to be I think that's going to be sort of a factor as well. Mainly because, the Colts like to run the ball. That's their plan. And you're going to be without the Will linebacker you've had, up to this point. And so, and they kept sort of, I guess, fill the hole. They kept Jack Conklin, who was an undrafted rookie, didn't make the initial 53, but they kept him on the practice squad. And from what I saw, they elected to keep him on because of so much interest that other teams had in him. So they're kind of just riding with him and Chenal, the other rookie, to sort of stop gap for the 4 games that Willie Gay's out. It's unfortunate too, because, I guess a non-Chiefs fan probably wouldn't notice as much, but he's really been coming on in the role. And, he was a 3rd-round pick guy that's kind of just been in the system and been like a nickel package sort of sub player. This is sort of the first year they really threw him into the fire. And even in that Chargers game, he played exceptionally well, and then, gets slapped with the suspension on a Monday. But that's certainly going to be a thing to look out for too.
No, I agree. I'd love to chat. I'd love to have like a banter and a volley back and forth to say, no, the Chiefs are going to do blah, 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 and the Colts are going to blow you out of the water, have some kind of smart remark. Or, something. And I'm sorry. I'm just not going to be able to say that because I'd be lying. So with that in mind, let's just say I agree with your assessment. And I'd like to jump over to the Broncos real quick with the Broncos.
My words, though, if I'm wrong on Monday.
Yeah, no joke, right, boy.
I know it's going to be great.
We can have a podcast if they lose. What would it? You got to shave your head or something if they lose?
No. Just remember, this is on video on the internet, which means it lives for freaking ever.
That's a good point. That's
okay. Yeah, and it's just it is over. So I'm going to move on to the Broncos 3-point stance versus the 49ers. We had a great guy come on to give his take on the 49ers versus the Broncos. This is going to be a fantastic game this weekend as well, guys. This is the 3 things the Niners need to do to beat my Broncos.
Hey, what's up, y'all? It's Kyle Madsen. I'm a host of Candlestick Chronicles, a 49ers podcast. It's on the Blue Wire Podcast Network. And I'm going to talk about this Niners-Broncos Sunday night football matchup and the 3 things the Niners have to do to beat Denver in Denver, which is not going to be particularly easy. The first thing they have to do with Jimmy Garoppolo back under center is they have to get their playmakers the ball. Their downfield passing game that they had with Trey Lance is going to be mostly non-existent with Jimmy Garoppolo, so that means getting Deebo Samuel involved, getting George Kittle involved if he plays. He's not played yet this year. He's dealing with a groin injury, but they have to get it to Deebo Samuel and George Kittle. They have to get Brandon Ayuk involved, especially with all the injuries in their backfield. It's Jeff Wilson Jr., It's Jordan Mason, an undrafted rookie, and then Marlon Mack, who they signed off the street prior to last week. So their backfield's a little beat up. That means I think we're going to see a ton of short passing to kind of be an extension of that run game. And that's really where Jimmy Garoppolo thrives, getting Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, and George Kittle the ball in the middle of the field, converting on third downs, and keeping the chains moving that way. And keeping Russell Wilson off the field, which brings me to the second point. They have to contain Russell Wilson. This is a player who has killed San Francisco over the last decade. And he does so by getting out of the pocket, not necessarily running, but evading pass rushers, forcing the secondary to cover 4, 5, 6, 7 seconds. And when you have playmakers like a Cortland Sutton or a Jerry Jeudy, they're going to get open. So the Niners have to keep Russell Wilson in the pocket. He's not comfortable throwing from there. He doesn't like throwing the ball over the middle of the field. So if they can keep him contained, control that middle of the field, and maybe try and get him to force some throws down the field, they can I think get some stops against what should be eventually. I know it's been a little rough going early on, but I think eventually that Broncos offense is going to move a little bit. The third point, the 49ers offense, just to bring it back to that, they have to figure out the red zone. That plain and simple. They were the best red zone team in the league last year. They didn't get there a ton, but when they did, they typically turned it into a touchdown. This year, they've not. They've been to the red zone 8 times. They only have 3 touchdowns to show for it. I know Broncos fans feel me on the red zone struggles, but they've fumbled. They had Deebo Samuel fumbled in week 1. They had Jake Brendel, their center, just fumbled a snap in week 2. They can't turn it over there, and they can't keep taking field goals because, again, when you get a team like Denver that is waiting to break out Sunday Night Football, field goals aren't going to do it, frankly. So I think the Niners have to figure out what they're doing in the red zone. They're converting just 37.5% through the first 2 weeks. That's an area of strength, or at least it should be. They have plenty of weapons down there near the red zone. Deebo Samuel, both on the ground and through the air. Brandon Ayuk is very good at getting open in short areas. George Kittle has gotten much better at contested catches. That's an area he really struggled early on in his career. And then a guy like Juwan Jennings, a big physical receiver, is a threat in the red zone as well. So if San Francisco can get into the red zone and convert those chances into touchdowns instead of field goals, I think they have a pretty good chance of walking out of Denver with their second win of the season.
I wanted to thank Andrew for, first off, that was Kyle Matson of Niners Wire coming in for the Denver Broncos 3-point stance. Andrew, I wanted to thank you very much for stepping in to provide Chargers take on all of the things here. It was really, really nice of you to stop by. Andrew's got to go over and discuss the Jags game for the Chargers. Andrew, thank you very much. That's Andrew of Bolt Bros. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Yeah, man. Good talking to you again.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks.
So that's the Niners-Broncos game. For those of you who don't know, both teams run the West Coast style offense. We both run outside zone run schemes. It's going to be really hilarious because you're going to see basically mirror images of one another on the offensive side
like
of the ball.
Spider-Man meme where I'll point.
Yeah, it's like, no, you. It's really going to be one of those really interesting things. I actually have to agree with my fellow MHRT colleagues here. If for those of you who didn't check it out, the 5280 podcast is on Tuesdays on the MHRT network, and there was a general consensus that we felt that the first 2 games were kind of the wake-up call for the Denver Broncos in terms of getting this nonsense sorted out. And I think between Hackett and Wilson, they are both students of the game and they're both professionals. And I very much agree with what Kyle said there, which was, Denver is a bit of a sleeping giant, if you will, on the offensive side of the ball. When you look at what we've been able to do in terms of moving the ball between the 20s, we've been excellent. We're within that top 1 to 2 or 3 teams in the NFL. Our struggles have typically been in the red zone. So part of that is also play calling and speed of play calling. And then the other piece is just picking the right play for the right situation. And Russell Wilson and Nathaniel Hackett are professionals, seasoned professionals. Hackett, first-time head coach, but he is an absolute gifted offensive coordinator. And I think it's just a matter of time. And in my opinion, I think both of them are going to realize and recognize that Shanahan, his father at least, Mike Shanahan, has a storied history here in Denver, and they're not going to let this opportunity pass to really show out against Kyle Shanahan, his son, when he comes back to Denver, because Kyle spent quite a few years around Mile High Stadium here in Denver.
Yeah,
and they're not going to want to. They're not going to want to come out and get blown out by running a similar offense.
Yeah, I mean, well, I don't think any team wants to come out and get blown out, but I agree. I think it's going to be a pretty good game, and honestly, pretty evenly matched. The biggest thing for me is just sort of the uncertainties with some of the players with San Fran. It's kind of unfortunate that it's unfortunate for Broncos, fortunate for the Niners. You got a team that loses their starting quarterback and doesn't really skip a beat, or is kind of already where they were last year. But they've had some injuries in their running back field. I mean, he rattled off 4 people alone, and none of them are really proven commodities. And he was mentioning Kittle as well, but from what I've seen, Kittle's still a limited participant in practice, and might not even be playing. I wish he would for fantasy purposes, but he's been screwing me so far. But I think I mean,
so I think it's Kittle as your tight end.
Yeah,
you should have had Saubert.
Yeah, right. I had Alberto. Alberto was the guy I put in. He didn't do anything, so
he's had some real struggles this year.
Yeah. But I do think this is a sink or swim moment for Denver. Especially because I'd have to look at the schedule, but I feel like it's going to get in there like a pretty rough stretch after.
The back end of our schedule is an absolute gauntlet.
Yeah. Okay. I'm looking at yeah. That's not so. Yeah. I mean, you're running out, and I mean, arguably wanted should be 2-0. In all reality,
we should have been. Yeah, I agree.
And it's so yeah, I think this is kind of a sink or swim game for them. It's either all going to click, or I don't know if it ever will. But it's also some people. I feel like you see this kind of rotating narrative with certain coordinators. It's like some people are great coordinators, but are just can't handle head coach. They're coordinating, I guess reputation and pedigree somewhat diminishes once they take on the head coach. It kind of try to do both hats. And Hackett might just be one of those guys that just, can't. He's an excellent play caller. Like, I have no doubts about that. And certainly if he was just a coordinator and just had to worry about that, obviously is a brilliant coach and just might not be able to handle the added stresses and components that go into being a head coach. And I just feel
my pushback on that a little bit. And I've heard that narrative, obviously, given the last couple of weeks.
Yeah.
And my pushback on that is, okay, but in the first 3 preseason games, if Hackett was so out of his depth, and I mean so out of his depth, the way that people are trying to claim, the Broncos would not have looked so prepared. And they did. In the first 3 preseason games, wow, was that ever impressive. Because we had a game plan. We had a style that we were playing with. You saw certain things where, we were kind of doing what you expect. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I have a hard time believing that the Denver Broncos, particularly Nathaniel Hackett on our team as the head coach, is so out of his depth that he is not capable of being a solid head coach. I'm not there yet. And I'm not there yet because I've seen what he can do in the preseason and how he looked in the preseason.
Yeah.
On the flip side of that, you look at, I don't know, a guy like the Cowboys head coach. Okay. He's gone 2 or 3 years where he's been the most penalized team in the NFL, and he looked just as awful Mike McCarthy, that is, in preseason as he has in the regular season with penalties, and it literally looks like
what was the Broncos like penalty? I mean, what was the range of a number of penalties in the preseason? If that's like
we weren't amazing, but we were nowhere near where we are right now. Yeah, we're nowhere near where we are right now.
I mean, that's the biggest component. I honestly, like, you take out the penalties, they beat Seattle. You take out the penalty. I didn't get to watch a whole bunch of the Texans game,
we beat our penalty total.
Yeah, but I'm saying, so I assume, you take
we're
out
in it to win it, baby.
Like you're winning by more.
Yes.
So, but and I'm not saying that I don't think Hackett is a good coach. I was just prefacing, that he just may be one of those people.
It's a fair comment. It's a fair comment.
Preseason, right? But it's easy to have a better mindset when the games don't matter, and like, hey, okay, I'm not even playing my starter, so really I'm just putting these guys out here to do a test run and let guys earn a roster spot, and then you get into the regular season and you start feeling I'm imagining there's pressure. I don't know. I've never been in that position, but I mean, once the games count and money's flowing around a bit more, you hear a lot of the chatter and tenseness when things aren't going good, and maybe it's just maybe that all just kind of compounds. And
Hackett's father is a coach. Has been for a number of years. He's familiar with that type of pressure. He's been around that type of pressure. He knows what that entails. Offensive coordinators are under a very similar amount of pressure to a head coach, in fairness. So again, that's not something he's unfamiliar with. I just have a hard time believing that what I saw in preseason is such a departure from what he's capable of in the regular season.
Yeah.
I think that this has more to do, and I've been on record on other podcasts saying this as well, which is you have a very proud quarterback in Russell Wilson who has come to the Denver Broncos to try and show that he can be the reason.
Mm-hmm.
And you have Nathaniel Hackett, who is a first-time head coach that also needs to show that he belongs as being a head coach. And I'm kind of feeding off of almost what you're saying here, but I'm actually coming at it from a much different angle. So both of these guys are with the Denver Broncos to not so much prove themselves, because I think that's really selling both of them quite short in terms of their storied NFL careers, but they both have different reasons to want to be seen as the reason.
Yeah.
And I think that there's not enough emphasis being put on the egos involved in the NFL and the pressure as a result of those egos that is put on each of them.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of my general take on it. And so really where we're at right now is the only way that the Denver Broncos are going to truly succeed this season is that, in my opinion, I think that there has to be a top-down mentality, because that's the way football works. And no one is questioning Andy Reid, right?
No.
Like, not a single person. And frankly, I think if anyone does, they're fired, right? Like, they're gone, right? So in my opinion, Hackett needs to be seen as the guy. And I think Russell Wilson needs to take not a backseat, but he certainly needs to just take direction.
Yeah.
And I realize that's a challenging thing for a veteran quarterback who's saying, you're a first-time head coach. But in order for a team to succeed, there has to be a single leader.
Mm.
And that single leader needs to be the head coach. And then the leader in general on the field needs to be the quarterback. And I think that both of those guys need to work out when the leash needs to be given to Russell Wilson to just kind of run things, and when Nathaniel Hackett needs to take over and says, I got this. And Russell Wilson needs to learn to concede that control. And Hackett needs to also, on the flip side, need to learn that he has effectively a Peyton Manning style quarterback at the quarterback position. I'm not saying Wilson is Peyton Manning.
Well,
I'm just saying that you're in that veteran class of quarterback.
So has there been like, I mean, I haven't, I've seen stories obviously about like issues Russ had in Seattle with them, like draft visiting Mahomes' pro day and stuff. But is there been like reports or stuff out on Twitter about kind of there being a clash between the two of them, or is that just sort of your?
No, this is my assessment when I'm looking at things, because in any position, and coming from the business world, I'm in an executive level position in my day job, if you will, and being in those leadership positions, especially considering that I'm surrounded by a very high number of type A personalities in the legal field, which is fine, by the way, that's not a problem. But there needs to be a yin and a yang, and in order for that relationship to work, the type A personalities need to realize that you are also a type A personality, and that they need to kind of give you the reins in order to complete and do your job. And then on the flip side, you also need to understand that the type A personalities on the business side also need a voice to help shape your role as well. And it's all about a balancing game and a yin and a yang. And I feel that that's what we're seeing play out on the field, sadly, for the Denver Broncos. And back to the previous segment that we were talking about before with, all three of our teams, when Jack, you and I were all here, the Chiefs were the only team of the three of ours that played their starters in the preseason. And I think this is one of the main reasons why you may want to do something like that, is to work out those communication and personality quirks when the games don't matter.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And just, and you would have more, for instance, I like you said, they were very polished looking, well coached in the preseason. I think some of that spills over if you play, your starters at least one series every game or something. Some of that stuff. You work out those kinks. But like I said, I think Denver's been kind of progressing up from week one. I mean, we've only played 2 weeks, but certainly seem better, at least from what I saw, better in terms of offense and moving the ball than in Seattle.
Seattle, we killed it though.
I know, but I guess more of the game flow. It seemed.
Yes,
I feel like the Seattle game, it just felt so like one-sided for the most part until he threw the touchdown to Judy. It was like, kind of just a Seattle scoring. So that's, I guess it just seemed like they moved the ball better in terms of dictating the game flow and kind of directed. There was never really a point where it seemed like the Texans were absolutely winning, whereas there was a few points in the Seattle game where you're like, the Seahawks are winning this. So I think that they're progressing up for the 49ers, who are kind of in a crossroads too. I mean, they went this whole offseason of preparing and scheming and using Trey Lance. And sure, everyone's saying, well, like Jimmy G's been the guy the past 3-4 years, so it shouldn't be that different. But I think that there will still be a little bit of lag time with that. Everyone seems to be making it out like Trey Lance is hurt, Jimmy G's just going to go in, and they're going to be the same 49ers they were, the past year. And I don't necessarily buy that, especially when you factor in that, their main running back got hurt in week one. Kittle might not be playing. You certainly can't scheme for the Broncos the same way as you would with Trey Lance, or really how they've probably schemed the first 2 weeks' opponents. So it's going to be a different game plan. Kyle Shanahan is a pretty creative offensive mind, but I know they'll definitely get their yards, but I just don't think it's going to be as easy of a thing to overcome for the Niners as kind of what the main media would have you think.
Right.
So I think Denver wins this game, as much as I don't want them to, but I think they will, and I just don't see. I just don't see the matchup too well. Like you said, it's the same offenses, but I think given the injuries you have with the 49ers, coupled with the sort of, at least what was sort of the two-headed dragon in Williams and Melvin Gordon, and the continuity with the run game and the same approach, I just think Denver's going to be more successful moving the ball and offensively than the Niners will be. So, yeah, I hope they go with a lot of Deebo Samuel because I got him on my fantasy team too. So I would be cool with a lot of yards from him, but I just don't see the Niners winning.
No, so I mean, to kind of counter and kind of give my take on what I'd like to see from the Broncos and what I see as keys for us. Number one is we have a fair number of injuries across the Denver Broncos.
Mm-hmm.
And in my opinion, the thing that we need to stop trying to do on the Denver Broncos is think that we are purely a passing football team and kind of downplay the run game. I think that's the exact wrong direction for the Denver Broncos, especially when you're playing at Mile High or in Denver, just, generally speaking.
Yeah.
Sorry, Empower Field. Sorry, I just can't bring myself to say it. But in terms of what I think we need to do, everything should go through the run game for us. Russ has typically done better with the run game. You then always have the option of having Russ run the ball as well and kind of be that kind of extra on top of that. I'm not saying you want him to do it. I'm just saying that you always want to make sure that
you
people
certainly have that component.
Yeah, you want to make sure that they think it could happen, right? And I think that's an important piece. So you need to basically put forth a very strong run game in order to present that as a front for the opposing team. The other thing I'd like to see is back to what we did against Seattle. I think so many teams struggle against our tight ends just because of their versatility. You have Saubert, you have Beck, and you have Albert O as number 1, 2, 3. But then you also have Tomlinson, who is kind of sneaky within the passing game as well a little bit, and is also obviously a blocking tight end. So by over leveraging your tight ends, you're immediately mismatching against shorter linebackers, because most linebackers are not 6'4" and up. They're normally 6'2", 6'3".
Yeah.
Right. So you have an immediate height advantage. And then frankly, as soon as you get a tight end on a safety or a cornerback, basically that's a massive size mismatch. And it's just a matter of throwing it a little higher than the cornerback can jump and you're probably good. So I think those types of things are very important for the Denver Broncos. We saw what that looked like against Seattle, especially in the first 2 or 3 drives when we were playing, where Denver outright dominated on the offensive side of the ball. And then we really made the mistakes in the red zone. And I think back to my previous comment about running the ball, I think that needs to be your mantra in the red zone, which is until you don't do it, you just run.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, just even if it's like 4 plays straight, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know why you wouldn't.
Like you just do it. You have Javonte Williams, who's dragging dudes still this season.
Although I don't know if Melvin Gordon necessarily fits with the new scheme because he doesn't seem to be running all that well.
They're both in the upper tier of the NFL in yards per carry.
Okay. Take your word for it. Because I guess they are.
I'm sorry,
what I've seen. I just
what?
I said I mean, I don't know where they're at, but he's averaging 12 carries for 58. I'm just saying I would give the ball more to Javonte than evenly split it like they're doing. Or seem to be doing.
No, I agree. I mean, Javonte is the future. Even Gordon has come out and said, I understand Javonte Williams is the future for the Denver Broncos, but I'm no slouch either. And I kind of agree with his general take, which is to say, look, they have both fumbled the ball, but they are both still producing in terms of yards and all that sort of thing. So why not use the dude that you have on the team? And then, for example, I think it's 18 of 22 plays in the red zone we've tried to pass the ball. And the number one thing the Denver Broncos have struggled with this season is in the red zone, we have not scored touchdowns. So, let's flip that script and say, run the ball until it doesn't work. And let's go that route instead. And then the other one that really caught me a little bit in the Texans and the Seattle game, because I saw it in both, was the opposing offensive line. Maybe it was based on scheme or whatever the case may be, but I've seen it happen in both games, which is super concerning to me, was through scheme on the offensive line, they were able to box out our defensive linemen and push them to either the left or the right. And they almost put up a wall.
It's like what they do when they run draws. Or
yes.
Like you're just letting the defender pick which way to go, and the running back's supposed to cut off of that.
Right. And in my opinion, that is a huge weakness for our team, because we need to start being able to get pressure directly up the middle of the field. So that prevents that type of thing from happening. And I realize you want to do contain. So you want to try and collapse the pocket like this without necessarily just breaking through, because then you can potentially catch yourself off guard and then get beaten anyway. So I understand the theory behind it, but that also prevents you from getting things like tackle for loss, because you need to break through the line in order to get a tackle for loss, which is better than allowing a 6-yard run up the gut.
Although I'll say I think it's going to be good that Jimmy G's out there, because you don't have to worry about contain or kind of keeping the edge set and making sure you don't let Lance get out as much as you would. So I think they're going to be able to get a little more creative in terms of how they apply pressure and where they get it from.
I just hope to see it.
Yeah,
that's my point. Is we've seen quarterback hurries, which is a stat that a lot of Broncos fans are liking to hang their hat on, but we haven't seen the true impact of the interior defensive line in terms of throwing the center and the guards back in the quarterback's face. We haven't seen that type of play, which is not only embarrassing, but actually truly disruptive. And on top of that, when the offensive line gets thrown backwards into a quarterback, it really starts messing with the quarterback's psyche. Because you saw that in the Super Bowl loss that Mahomes had, where he lost 2 or 3 linemen, and they had the replacements basically tossed back in his face. It really impacted him pretty heavily, and we've seen that happen in some of the last Super Bowls as well. And also in the regular season, we've seen what the Bills have been able to do to teams. They've just made them look silly, and you like to see more of that happen because I think that's beneficial to your team, and I think that this is the time where the Broncos need to put up or shut up in terms of the defensive line. We keep on hearing all these wonderful things about the Denver Broncos defensive line, but we're getting what I see as modest pressure, and then we're getting opportunistic pressure. And I think that too many times as fans, we are looking at opportunistic pressure and saying, oh, look at the stats.
Yeah.
Right. And then you're not looking down at the situational pressure, which is in some cases
even like in that Seahawks game, I think Chubb had 1 or 2, but it was like it didn't seem like they had any pressure until towards the end.
Right. Don't get me wrong; those were game-changing defensive plays by Chubb, which really allowed us to potentially come back and win that game. So you can't take that away from him. But the point is, you don't want that to only happen in the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
You don't want that to be the only time stuff like that occurs. You want to be able to scheme that throughout the course of the game. And the Broncos really need to see that more and more. And frankly, some of the other teams in the AFC West are looking for more of the same. So anyways, with that in mind, guys, that is the Denver Broncos versus the 49ers. And my kind of 3 things that I'd like to see a little bit more of in this game. And sorry, just one last thing very quickly. Mathis, was it Damari? I think it's Damari Mathis. He's a first-year player, rookie on the Denver Broncos. He stepped in for Patrick Surtain the second. And I really do want to say, wow. I was very, very –
right?
Pardon me?
Is he a rookie?
He's a rookie. He played very well.
Yeah.
And I just think that he deserves a lot of credit for stepping in, showing that he can do all the right things. He can make a mistake and bounce back the next play. He made an error on one play and then came right back the very next and had a pass breakup. That's exactly what you want to see from a cornerback at the NFL level. So before I sign off, so before I sign off, I did want to give absolute credit where credit's due. And of course, there's my guy Saubert, who it would not be a show without me mentioning him at least twice. So, guys, thank you very much for joining us today on the Wild Wild West podcast. I am Richie Richey. This is Alec Gibbons. We hope to see both coach and captain. Obviously, captain had to go to his other show, but we'll see both of them back next week. And we'd like to thank you all for joining us today. Click the like button down and leave your comments. It helps us all with the YouTube algorithms. And until next Wednesday, where the West Side is the best side, We will see you next week.
Go Chiefs.